Welcome to It's Culture Podcast, Season 2, Episode 3. I'm your host. My name is Mark, and It's Culture is a podcast show where we talk about everything dealing with the culture, whether it's hip hop, sports, politics. I don't really want to deal in the gossip, but everything is culture, right? So if you could do some things for me before we start. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, and hit that notification bell for all updates. So like, share, and subscribe, please. Subscribe. I appreciate everyone who subscribed over the last couple of days. I really appreciate that. Help me continue to grow this channel, and I continue to provide you with some good commentary, on how I look at these topics and what I'm thinking. So now my opinions are my opinions. I'm not trying to prove them off as facts unless I bring something to you that I've read and researched. But these are just my opinions. So, but tonight we got a few things to talk about. Not too much. But I really want to kind of dive deep into what happened. I don't know if you all been paying attention to women's college basketball. So I want to talk about what happened at the end of the LSU and South Carolina game. Not necessarily about the action that happened, but the reaction from the coaches at the end, as well as talk about what's going on with DEI in the state of Florida. Hot button topic, very hot button topic. We are in election season, and these bills and laws are being signed into law all over this country. And we have to be informed. We have to be an informed electorate before we become a voting electorate. So I promise to start bringing more and more political stuff to this channel because it is election season, and I believe that politics, if we don't do politics the right way, we get the politics that we get all the time. So that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. So let's dive deep into it. Let's go ahead and get into this. So last night, women's college basketball. First of all, let me just start with talking about the women's game and women's college basketball in general. It is probably the most exciting of all the leagues in basketball, as far as I'm concerned. Men's college basketball is failing in comparison to the women's game. The women's game has more star power. It has more storylines. It has better coaching. And right now, they have the better players. We got some great games yesterday in the conference tournament. You had Iowa playing against Nebraska. That game went into overtime. Caitlin Clark, she did her thing in the second half after being shut out pretty much in the first half. You had USC in a battle with Stanford. They came down to the wire, and USC ended up winning the Pac-12 in the final year of the Pac-12. In their final year in the conference, because the conference is going away, and they won that game. Very good. But we had the South Carolina LSU game. You have legendary coaches on both sides, Mulkey and Don Staley. Don Staley comes into this game with the only undefeated team in men's or women's basketball, with her Lady Gamecocks, after losing her in all 5 starters from last season. Like all 5 went to the WNBA, got drafted into the WNBA, and she had to rebuild her entire starting 5. And somehow, some way, her coaching has gotten her team to be 32-0 this season and another SEC championship. And for the 16th time in a row, they have beaten LSU. They beat them in the regular season earlier, back in, I think it was November. They beat them in the regular season and then turned around and beat them last night. But what happened towards the end of the game is what I really want to talk about. I'm not going to show the video because I don't condone violence in any form. But I will say that the players got a little chippy. You had, I think at the time, it was 2 minutes, 8 seconds left on the clock. LSU had fought their way back into the game. They were down by 1. And then South Carolina went on like a small little run to go back up by 6. Go back up by 7. I'm sorry. Go back up by 7. And then, a steal happened. Malaysia Flau'Jae stole the ball from Flau'Jae Johnson. Was off to the races. Looked like she's about to lay it up again to go up by 9. She gets intentionally fouled by Flau'Jae. Some jawing happened between, as the players are coming off the court. Some jawing, trash talk is in the game. Happened. It's a tense time of the game. It's 2 minutes left. This is for the conference title. And it got a little chippy. Ended up being a couple of shoves, and then Camille Cardoza ended up shoving Flau'Jae to the ground, and then the benches cleared a little bit. No punches were thrown, but Flau'Jae's brother did leave the stand and ended up on the floor with the girls, and ended up getting arrested, charged with assault, because I think he might have touched Camilla Cardoza from behind. But that was it. Enough said. Cardoza gets kicked out the game. She gets ejected. She's not able to play in the first round game in the NCAA tournament. 4 other players were ejected right along with her from South Carolina. So they finished the game with 6 players, and LSU had 4 players to get thrown out. 4 or 5 players get thrown out, and they finished the game with 5 players. But I want to discuss what the coaches said after the game. Now, I'm a big Dawn Staley fan. Been following her since she was a point guard at Virginia, all the way into Team USA, all the way into the WNBA, and now as a coach. She's a phenomenal coach. She's the leader of women. And so we're going to play what she said, and then we're going to play what Mulkey, who is the reigning coach of the national champions LSU. They won a national championship last year. Mulkey before that had won 3 titles at Baylor. So she's not a just some run-of-the-mill coach. She is a top 5 coach in college basketball, along with Terry Vanderveer at Stanford and Gino at UConn. They're between her, Dawn Staley, Vanderveer, and Gino. They are probably the 4 best coaches in the women's game right now. They have been for a while, and their programs are storied. You would have thrown Pat Summitt, God rest her dead, if she still was alive. Pat Summitt would be in that conversation right along with them to round it out. So this is what Dawn Staley said, and then we're going to play what Mulkey said, and then we'll come back on the other side and discuss. But this is fair use as well, so.
Staley is with Brooke.
Coach Staley, congratulations, your 8th SEC championship in 10 years. How did you get it done today?
I mean, the players. It's all about the players being able to make plays on both sides of the basketball. I just want to apologize to the basketball community. When you're playing in championship games like this, in our league, things get heated. No bad intentions. They just their emotions got so far ahead of them that sometimes these things happen. So I want to apologize for us playing a part in that, because that's not who we are and that's not what we're about. But I'm happy for the players that were able to finish the game and get us another championship.
Okay, so that was Dawn Staley. Here's Mulkey.
No one wants to be a part of that. No one wants to see that ugliness. But I can tell you this. I wish she would have pushed Angel Reese. Don't push a kid. You 6'8", don't push somebody that little. That was uncalled for, in my opinion. Let those 2 girls that were jawing, let them go at it.
All right. So we heard both sides. You heard Dawn Staley being emphatic and humble and apologizing for the behavior of her players. Then you heard Mulkey kind of give her spill. She didn't take no accountability for what happened or nothing that transcended. She said that she did acknowledge that that shouldn't be in the game, and however, she did mention Angel Reese and said, "I wish she would have pushed Angel." Now, Angel Reese was coming off the court. She had just twisted her ankle, so she was in no way going to be out there trying to do anything because she had just came off the court. She was already dealing with an ankle issue already and kind of retweeted it again. But it's the class behind what she was. Kim Mulkey has had these outbursts in the past. In the past she's had these things, and then she's had to deal with her. Her team is pretty much. I mean, she's a white coach, but let's keep it a buck. Her team is 99% black. I think she maybe has one white girl on the team, just like South Carolina. I think Haley Van Lith may be the only white girl on South Carolina. I mean, on LSU squad, just like Chloe Kitts is the only white girl that's on the South Carolina squad. So you got a team full of black girls. They have been called, Angel Reese and Flau'Jae have been called everything but a child of God. For some reason, there is this contingency in the country that wants to put this thug label on these young black women. For some reason, they want to call them thugs. There's a video that has circulated on Twitter where there was a woman at the game in garnet and black, so we know that she was a South Carolina. She was cheering on the Lady Gamecocks, but however, she decided that she wanted to call Flau'Jae a thug, and she's texting this in the game as after this altercation happened. Thug. No, she really wanted to say nigga, but she knew where she was at, so she keeps it PC and calls her a thug, and that is the new label. I mean, thug is synonymous with black. I mean, we can't sit up here and play these games and the semantics because they want to use thug will get them won't get them canceled. Calling a black player nigga will get you ejected, and so she's up there texting this in big old font on her phone, and so you have this going on with the players. I'm gonna show y'all this real quick. I wasn't gonna show it, but I think it's worth noting. I'm gonna share my screen real quick so y'all can see this. Hopefully you can see it. Shout out to this Shannon Sharp burner account for having it, but I want you to view what this woman is doing in this message. So you see her texting.
Holy moly!
I want y'all to. No, we're gonna expand it out some more so you can probably see it. There you go. Look at this. Yep, Floss the brother. Floss is onto the couch on the court. He's arrested. This is what she's texting. Holy moly, that fight. You know what I'm saying? He's a thug. And her daddy is a thug. Her dad is a thug rapper. Now, did y'all see that? Did you see it? Her dad, she's a thug, and her dad is a thug rapper. First of all, Camouflage has been dead for over 15 years. That is Flau'Jae Johnson's dad. His name was Camouflage. He was a rapper from Savannah, Georgia, was brutally murdered after leaving the studio and recording session. He died in 2003. So you are literally talking about a man who died over 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago, this man's been dead. And you're calling him a thug, and you're saying that his daughter is a thug too. This man died leaving the recording studio after recording with the toddler, leaving the studio with the toddler in his hand. He died, and you're calling this man a thug, and you're calling his daughter a thug. you know, if I was at the game and I would have been behind this white woman, I would have said something. Because my first reaction is, number one, what is she thugging? Is she a gangbanger? No. Flau'Jae is an academic All-American at LSU. She doesn't do anything thuggish. She does rap, but if you listen to her rap music, it ain't sexualized. She's talking about, you know, society and you know, being the best and things like that. It's women's empowerment music. It ain't thug culture. There's nothing thug about her. Her mom got her out of Savannah and went to Marietta, and she became an All-American basketball player in high school at Sprayberry. This is white folks sitting in the stands, want to cheer for because she's probably couldn't play basketball, and she wants to be tweeting this stuff out at a game where there's other people around you. Now, mind you, now South Carolina's women's basketball has a black following because they have a black coach. A lot of black people follow South Carolina basketball because of Don Staley. Before Don got there, nobody was paying attention to South Carolina late in the game college basketball. But they pay attention to Don Staley because she's from the culture. So how are you going to be calling this young woman a thug? I wish that we would have had a picture of what she looked like for the front, because then we could really expose her for who she really is. But you know, we don't have that. But I would have loved to have seen her face. So we could have put a face and a name together and really found out what this woman was about. Because I'm pretty sure this ain't the first time she's tweeted something. She's texted something like that, and I'm pretty sure we go to her social media and we go digging into her life. I'm pretty sure we'll find some other stuff that she's talking about. Just trashy. But so you got Mulkey as a coach. You got players getting called thugs. Angel Reese has been called everything. She gets called thug all the time. You don't even protect these young women. You're not saying anything to protect them. You're not standing up for them. You suspending them and all this other crap. And then when you're getting questions and ask questions about your players, instead of talking about them in a great light, you're gonna say that she wish you would have pushed you wish she would have pushed Angel Reese. So what? Angel could have she could have turned around and reacted and got into a fisticuff. So that could have been the narrative. That could have been. She's already labeled a thug. This would have just added more fuel to these meth heads that continue to talk smack about her online. Why would you want that type of heat coming to your player, knowing that she's dealing with cyberbullying damn near every day? Instead of just saying there's no, you know, it was uncalled for, it shouldn't be in the women's game. I talked to Don after the game was over with. We agreed, yada yada yada. Whatever. Because what people don't see is that Flau'Jae actually came up to Don Staley and they had a long conversation where Flau'Jae apologized to Don. Why? Because Don was recruiting her. Like, Don was recruiting her. Don recruited Angel Reese as well. So she has a relationship with these players. These are some of the top players in the country. These are not scrub young ladies. These are the best of the best. These young women were in the ESPN top 100 in their recruiting classes. All of them are highly ranked players. All of them have a bright future in the WNBA when it becomes that. All these young women are All-Americans. And Mulkey, instead of defending your players, calling out the nonsense, saying it's not a part of the game, you should have just left it right there. Don't bring up, I wish you would have pushed Angel. Come on now. Cardozo's 6'7". Flau'Jae is 5'11". Angel Reese is 6'4". Cardozo is a larger size woman. You know, I mean, let's keep it a buck. She's from Brazil and she's Amazon. But this is basketball. They had been chippy all game. They had been trash talking all game. There was elbows flying. There was hard fouls given. It looked like the basketball of the 90s when the Knicks was just beating up team. Like, it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch physical basketball from a women's perspective, because the game is changing, and I love it. I love it for the women's game because I believe that the women's game is a lot more exciting than the men. But we need coaches that's going to protect their players. So Mulkey, you got to do better than this. those comments are not good. You shouldn't be advocating for someone to push another player because you know that she's going to react a certain way, knowing the type of coverage that she's getting, this negative press that she keeps getting from white media. Come on now, Kim. Let's do better than that. So that's my soapbox on that one. I'm excited for the tournament, the women's tournament, because I know it's going to be some storylines. I'm excited to see USC. I'm excited to see UConn. I'm excited to see Iowa. I'm excited to see Ohio State. I'm excited to see South Carolina, LSU. I'm excited to see Tennessee. I mean, there is some. I'm excited to see Washington and Oregon. Like, there is some real good basketball on the women's side, and some real good teams, and all these teams got great players. So it's going to be exciting to watch. So moving on. So if y'all don't know what's going on in Florida right now, Ron DeSantis, aka DeSatan, is what I call him. He has been on this anti-DEI, anti-woke campaign for the last 4 years. It's probably the reason why he got throttled in the primary for the Republican nominee to be the president. Because if DeSantis would have won the Republican, yes, he's the type to put people back in chains. Now, I for one can't stand DeSantis. I don't like his politics. I liked him when he was in the Navy, and I'm a Navy vet. I could not like DeSantis when he was in the Navy. He was an officer in the Navy. He was a piece of shit officer. And you know, he was down in Jacksonville, Florida, as an officer. When I was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida, he was a shitty ass officer. And he a shitty ass governor. So I don't like him. I don't like him at all. I think that he's a racist. I think he's bigoted, and I think that he really has some type of complex when it comes to black folks, because nobody likes DeSantis. So he's been on this anti-DEI, anti-woke thing for the last 4 years, and he had got the Florida legislature to pass a bill to ban DE&I programs on campuses of Florida. Now, he's not the only governor that has done this. Greg Abbott has done this in Texas. And there's like 30 other legislators across the state, across the country, that have been doing these anti-DE&I things. And if you go to social media, you type in DE&I, you will see some of the worst comments from white folks when it comes to DE&I. Like X, formerly known as Twitter, has become a safe haven for bigoted and racist folks to just say what the hell they want to say without any impunity. This is what it has become. It is a cesspool for filth, debauchery, porn, and racism. That's what X is. It is a horrible platform now. So anytime something happens, especially when, like right now with the airline companies, they're having a lot of issues with flights and planes colliding. They want to blame this on DE&I because some white person decided that they found an article that said that American Airlines and United and all that were looking for diversity. They want to increase their diversity in a market where there's 2% black pilots. That's what it is. 2% of the pilots in the United States are black. And so when these planes collide, the first thing they want to go to is, oh, it's DE&I. We told y'all it's DE&I. And then you find out the pilots were white guys. Where's the DE&I in it? So when you got these legislators around the country pushing these things, they're pushing this anti-DE&I stuff because they don't want to see people that look like me in positions of leadership. They feel that when these people like Charlie Kirk, all these white wing nut jobs, they feel that we're inferior, and that the standard has to be lowered. Like everything is being lowered down to allow us to come in. Like we can't get in on our own merit. The only way we can get hired is it had to be some DE&I stuff. Don't mind that you got your degrees. We don't care if you graduated from Harvard or got your MBA from Harvard or Princeton or Brown. We don't care. We don't care if you went to the University of Alabama. We don't care if you went to the University of Georgia. We don't care. We don't care if you pass the same test as these other people. The only reason why you got this job is because you black. And they have been going after every single thing from affirmative action. They convinced Asian people to file a lawsuit about affirmative action, thinking that black folks were taking away positions from them at these Ivy League schools, only to find out that all they did was gut themselves out of these same opportunities because they're still not getting accepted. And you did all this hooping and hollering, went all the way to the Supreme Court to get affirmative action overturned, only to have the same thing happen to you a year later, and the results did not change. Actually, you're getting accepted even less now than you were when affirmative action was actually in place. Dummies. And so now they have attacked DE&I. So we're going to go down to listen to this from the news on what happened in Florida.
Of Florida becoming the latest school to eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion program positions due to new state rules. ABC's Jay O'Brien joins us with the details on that. Good morning, Jay.
Janae, good morning. Florida now at the center of the latest firestorm over diversity policies in schools, this time at the state's flagship university. This morning, the fallout after the University of Florida eliminated all diversity, equity, and inclusion positions, getting rid of more than a dozen full-time jobs, including the campus's chief diversity officer, ending 15 administrative roles, and canceling all DEI-focused contracts with vendors. The university, now led by former Republican Senator Ben Sasse, saying it's complying with new Florida education restrictions after the state legislature passed a law last year banning public funding of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, programs. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis celebrating UF's move, posting, "DEI is toxic and has no place in our public universities." Republican State Representative Bernie Jacques co-sponsored the legislation.
To make sure that we have education in our higher education system here in the state of Florida instead of indoctrination.
Critics, however, warning that eliminating all DEI policies and staff roles at a leading public university will have ripple effects nationwide.
Our young people, our students, our educational institutions are the ones who become the collateral damage of everything that we're seeing right now. This is so far more than just politics. This is what's going to start happening all across this country.
How can you be certain that this doesn't inspire fear in academics and in a way make them fearful of teaching any kind of diversity?
Well, it doesn't do that, right? If there's a student-led group that wants to engage in diversity discussions or gender or what have you, if it's student-led, they can do that. What we don't want it to happen is we don't want it to be institutionally led and taxpayer-funded.
Now, 8 other states, in addition to Florida, have passed legislation aimed at dismantling DEI programs on college campuses, and at least a dozen states are now considering similar legislation. Gio?
And it appears this debate is far from over. All right, Jay, thank you so much for that.
All right. Sorry about that. So you heard from you heard the news, and I find it very odd that they found some black immigrant to turn around and be the co-sponsor of this. Leave it to Republicans to find a black face to push their racist ass agenda, right? They always got to find somebody, and they found a local token black dude in the Republican Party that wants to push this idea that DE&I is something bad on. It's institutionalized. Mind you, there is not one single stat, anything that they could point to, no data, that is pushing this ideology that having a diversity, equity, and inclusion department somehow is indoctrinating kids to hate other races. There's no documentation for this. This is just borderline. I'm getting rid of anything that has to do with black folks. on campus. Now, the NAACP, who I'm really not really a fan of their positions right now, they did come out with a statement, and the statement reads, let me pull it up real quick because I did have it up. Sorry about that. So it did come up, and what it said is diversity, equity, and inclusion are paramount to ensuring equitable and effective educational outcomes. The value Black and other college athletes bring to the large universities is unmatched. If these institutions are unable to completely invest in those athletes, it's time to take their talents elsewhere. Now, what is he talking about? And I actually agree with Derek Johnson on this point. I normally sometimes he goes kind of too far, and I'm just like, what are you doing? But I agree with this one. If I was a parent of a student athlete, and one of the flagship universities in the state of Florida, whether it's Florida State, South Florida, Central Florida, Miami, Florida State, if any of those schools came to my door talking about we want your kid to become a 10 our university, I would emphatically say, hell no. Absolutely not. We're not going there. He's not going there. He's not going there. He's not going to schools in Alabama. He's not going to schools in Texas. He's damn sure ain't going to schools in Florida. Because how is it, and this goes back to that Mulkey thing that I talked about, and I'm glad this kind of transitions into that, is how in the hell are you going to have a team that is primarily comprised of Black athletes, and they have no voice on campus whatsoever when it comes to how they're being taught? You want them to come play in front of crowds that are completely opposite of the makeup of the team. Now, you go to any of these SEC schools and you watch football. You know, I watch the University of Georgia, but you look at the team, 80% Black. School, 12% Black. Colorado, Coach Prime, 90% Black student athletes, 2% Black student population on campus. So at all these institutions, the athletes make up the bulk. The student athletes make up the bulk of the diversity on these campuses. And now they don't even have a place where they can go to even bring up issues that may be arising on campus, because they have gut everything. University of Florida is already a battlefield. They've already pretty much become a non-factor in college football. It used to be a powerhouse. They become a non-factor in college football. You already are struggling with recruiting Black student athletes to come play for you. Now all of a sudden, the school, the institution itself decides we're gonna take on this stuff because Ben Sass, who used to be a congressman, has decided that he wants to run this university with no diversity equity to get in compliance with his homeboy DeSantis' law. They just recruited the #1 quarterback in the country to come play for them, DJ Lagway. If I'm DJ Lagway's parents, DJ Lagway's hitting the transfer portal, but he won't play one single down of football for the University of Florida if I was his parents. We will be out of that school right now. We'll be looking for our next opportunity, because this is horrible. Because if you all don't understand how these laws work, politicians don't write bills. Okay, I'm gonna put that out there. So your favorite politician don't write bills. None of our lawmakers actually write bills. They don't sit down and write them. Their legislative directors are not writing them. What happens is you have nonprofit organizations who come in, who meet with these politicians and say, hey, I have a bill that will address this. We will give you money for your campaign, because politicians are always campaigning for the next election. We will be a donor to you if you push through this bill. And this is what this bill is going to do. Yeah, your governor is saying he's tired of DE&I. Guess what? We have a bill written to gut DE&I. And the language is written, so people won't really want to challenge it because of the way that it's written. And it's already being supported by half of our state. So we don't have anything to worry about. Don't worry about the Democrats. Don't worry about, you know, the minorities in the state, because we got the numbers to push this. This is like Jim Crow all over again. It's Jim Crow 2.0. This is what this is. So they're doing this. And you have this nonprofit that'll do it in one state. If they can get it through the legislature in one state, then they're going to try another state. And they keep trying and keep getting it passed from state to state to state. So if there are a majority of the states, and this is how local politics plays into state politics, that plays into national politics. It's not in reverse. It's not national, state, local. It's local, state, national. This is how bills are passed, okay? I want y'all to understand that. Start at the local level, get it passed. Enough local areas pass the same resolution, it goes to the state level. States pass it. Once the state passes, and a majority of the states, once they get to that threshold, the 30 states, that's usually the threshold that they try to get to. Once they get 30 states on board with any bill in their states, they know they got enough to take it to the national level and get it passed on the national level. Because they can say, well, we already got 30 states that have already passed this. It's popular. So let's do it on a national level. And that's how bills are passed. You have people that are funding these things at every single level, and they try and try and try. And they do the exact same thing when they're gutting stuff. They'll start off in one jurisdiction, bringing it through the courts. With the whole goal is to get to the Supreme Court for them to make a national rule. After they have gutted every single thing at the local, state level, and now they're at the national level trying to gut it at the national level. This is how they have done every single time they start to do these bills. And if you don't believe me, all you gotta do is type in whatever bill you want to go look at. Look at how many states passed it before it became a national bill. I promise you, you will see this. You will see those same bills getting reworded, and all they're doing is changing. And once they understand the constitution of the states that they're in, all they do is just change the law to fit the constitution, so that way it cannot be challenged legally. This is where constitutional lawyers come in at, and the political parties are dominated by these constitutional lawyers who understand how to write stuff in a way to destroy or create issues that cannot be challenged. Where's the protection for Black folks at when this happens? We don't have this type of we don't have the funding, nor do we have the people power. Well, we probably have the people power, but we don't have the funding, and we're too spread out geographically to have to because of all honesty, if we control the South, none of this crap will be going on. If we want to so spread out geographically, if we were back in the South where our ancestors are from, pretty much, we would control the entire legislative branch. That pretty much is why the Civil War started. That's why the Civil War started. The South felt that they should be able to control slavery and that they had more electoral votes than the North. And they couldn't understand how Lincoln became president. And so they decided to go to war because they felt that they didn't have a voice. That's what started the battle at Fort Sumter. All around slavery, wanted to keep slavery in, and because they felt that they didn't have control, they had more electoral votes and more representation in DC at the time, and they felt that they did not have equal representation. So now you have this. So I have to ask, what are we going to do about this? Because these things are sprouting up all over the country. So if you are a parent of a student athlete, it's time to start having these conversations with your kids. I understand, and trust me, I'm not in a situation where my kids are athletes. My kids do other stuff, music, dance, gaming. That's the stuff they're into. So I don't have no athletes as kids, and two of my children are already adults. So I don't have that. But if I was in this situation and I had an athlete as a son, there would be no way in hell he would be going to play any sport in the state of Georgia. I mean, in the state of Florida or Texas. Because if you don't accept the diversity, if you don't like the diversity of the student population, if you don't think that every student should have a voice on campus where they can feel safe in a safe space, if you don't feel like certain subjects should not be taught, if you think African American studies is an issue, if you think teaching about slavery and Jim Crow and Reconstruction, so we don't repeat history. If you don't agree with those things and you think it's a problem, it's a problem in hiring now, it's a problem in whatever. If you think all these things are the problem and black folks are the problem, then you don't need black bodies on that field to cheer for. Go get you a team full of white athletes again and see how that's gonna happen. See what happens to you. See what happens to you. Look at the NFL. Look at the NFL. Years ago, there were one to maybe two black quarterbacks. Now half the league got black quarterbacks, and more black coaches are showing up. Head coaches, coordinators, position coaches, all are starting to look black. You're gonna have a problem. You're gonna have a serious problem. So, I wish I was in constant. I wish I had communication with the Lagways, because I would kindly tell them to get your son out of Florida, get him out of Florida, get him off that campus. Do not let him suit up. So a bunch of white folks in the audience who don't give a damn whether he's a student or not can be able to cheer for him on Saturdays wearing their Gator gear. And it sucks because you got two HBCUs down there, one who just won the Black National Championships, FAMU. You got them in that same predicament where they don't have to need an Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, because they don't need one, but they are falling victim to this. And if we're not wise to this, you saw they fired people, fired the chief diversity officer. What's going to be next? The only thing left on these campuses that is black representative is the fraternities and sororities. So what happens when they decide that they don't want to have no student-led organizations that are black-led? Because even though they had that Republican saying, "Oh no, this is just about the institution not being," you think that if you want to, this is how it starts. And before you know it, Delta, aka Zeta, Sigma, Kappa, Omega Psi Phi, and Sigma Gamma Rho, and Iota Phi Theta gonna be off of that campus. They're gonna send something to say, we don't want any of the National Panhellenic Council is DE&I. We don't want that on our campus. It's coming if we're not wise. So take that what you want. Florida is a state that if as a black person, I would never live in. Not as long as DeSantis is the governor. And for the black folks that are in Florida, y'all better be mobilizing right now. I don't understand what the Democrats are doing, because this is ground game stuff here. This is get out the vote while you concern yourself playing Sexy Red and having HBCU students doing all this song and dance and pony shit. You should be on the ground going into these black communities telling these people, hey, they are literally taking away your rights down here. They are literally gutting every single thing that we have in place. They do not want you in this state. It is not safe. We need to get DeSantis out of office. We need to get Ben Sass out, and we need to make sure that the board of trustees of that school, Emmett Smith, who is a Florida alum, came out vehemently against this. We need more black student athletes that went to the University of Florida to say something. And also, I'm gonna need Tim Tebow to say something. You got black teammates that you played with at the University of Florida that bled and played football with you to help you become a Heisman Trophy winner. You need to say something. You need to speak out about this, because this is completely wrong. Completely wrong. And if we're not smart and we're not wise enough, we're going to see this continue to happen over and over again until DE&I is completely done for all across the nation. We just had a black woman who had a nonprofit in Atlanta that was giving out helping black women businesses get sued and get stopped from doing it because it was DE&I. So let's get mobilized. Let's get active. Let's really start to understand what is going on. We got to understand these bills. We cannot just be now is not the time to just be sitting back being reactive like we always are. We got to get more proactive in our politics and understand what's going on. We can't be saying, these politicians are coming to your communities talking about vote for me. Well, you need to be telling them, well, what the hell are you going to do about these DEI getting gutted everywhere? What are you going to do to protect us? That's what you should be asking. When Biden is telling black folks, I got your back. Well, what are you going to do about stopping these? What are you going to do to stop this anti-DEI campaign from reaching record numbers all across this country? That's what we need to be asking. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. We're going to have more nuanced discussions around these things. As I find out more information, I would kindly bring it to you. If you got any articles, any stories, anything that you find out there, my email address will be in the links to the chat. It'll be in the description part. Send me an email with the article, and I'll discuss it on my next podcast. I do my research and discuss it. So help me grow the channel. Let's stay engaged. Let's keep it coaching. Thank you.